everyone.
I'd like to call a meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Move on to the roll call.
Mayor Steve Kane.
Present.
Councilmembers Richard Ortman.
Here.
Rich Scordahl.
Here.
Chris McClish.
Here.
Tim Wells.
Here.
Okay, we'll next accept a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Brown. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Mr. McClish. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of adopting tonight's agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I'll now entertain a motion to accept tonight's consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'll approve that.
Okay, Mr. McClish makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Orban. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting tonight's consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Meeting open to the public. Barb, is there anyone who would like to speak?
Two people. First one, Robert Bauer.
Please step up, give your name, address, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Robert Bauer, 23246 Cherry Street, St. Francis, Minnesota. Coming to you, the mayor and city council members, as the vice president of the Relief Association. I ask that you approve the Relief Association's request for the following items. Transitioning to para, moving from $2,100 to $3,100 per annual year, to be able to vest after 5 years per para's request, and also $500 per firefighter per year in a city municipal contribution. My understanding that the only city employees that are not in para are the firefighters. And again, I ask that you approve the St. Francis Fire Department Relief Association's request to move forward and to go into para. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one, Steve Feldman.
Steve's no-handed this, he knows.
Steve Feldman, 22766 Poppy Street, Northwest St. Francis, Minnesota. A couple questions I have. One is on this Bridge Street improvements. It says that the engineer is requesting a change order for $202,500. I'd like to know if that's going to be paid by the city or the county, and if by the city, where are the funds coming from? If you can answer that one during the meeting. And then second of all, there's this item here today about ordinance 218 on the changing the meetings and times and places of the meetings. I'd like to know what examples where a meeting would have to be changed. Holiday-wise, this year it's only July 4th and Labor Day on September 5th. Those are the only two that I see as far as the first and third Mondays. I'd like to know again how the public is going to be notified of a change. I thought the wording was kind of vague myself, because then it says if a meeting falls on a holiday, it's pushed back to the next day. And if it just really pertains about the second meeting in December around the holidays where people take vacations and we can't do it, why can't you just write in to just take out the second meeting, the third meeting of Monday, which is the second meeting of the month, take it out and just leave the ordinance the way it is? My concern, and what I've heard from other people, is if we don't have enough notice, how are we going to know there's a meeting? If there's a big issue at stake, like what we did have with the wastewater treatment facility, that would have been a shame people couldn't have come to that. So I'd like to know again how the public's going to be notified. What is the reason for the change? And if it's just again about a second meeting in December, just get rid of that meeting and keep the ordinance the way it is. I don't want to, I guess what I'm saying is that I along with the other concerns of other people that talk to me, don't want to see that much broad leeway to change a meeting and how you change it, where we don't have the ability to know what's going on with our council and our money and our city. Thank you.
Okay. Barb, anyone else?
No one else.
Then we will move on to, there's no petitions, requests, or applications, so ordinances and resolution. Ordinance 218, second series amending City Code, Chapter 2, Section 2, entitled Council Meeting, Time and Place, second reading.
Mr. Mayor, if I may take this one, this is accompanying the prior change that was supported and pushed through by the Charter Commission. The Charter Commission indicated the change in the city charter to allow council to adopt alternate times for meetings rather than the first and third Mondays at 6. This was initiated by discussion over prior instances in which the council had a difficult time obtaining quorums in 2 instances. One was around the 4th of July holiday, and then the second one involved the second meeting in December when there was obviously the Christmas holiday and a number of individuals would be on vacation. The December one specifically is one where it's getting to be increasingly common for the other cities around us to cancel that second meeting, simply not have it. One of my other hobby jobs is I'm the Champlin city attorney, and that city does not have a second meeting in December at all. The intent in putting together this language is that the council would regularly meet on the first and third Mondays, except when the council did a resolution at a prior meeting. So it would be something that the citizens would know at least 1 or more meetings in advance, that meeting would be changed or canceled. So the intent was to do it not simply by motion, but by a resolution, so that there would be sufficient notice given to everybody that was interested in it. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, but that was the intent in putting those together.
Council, do we have any questions? Mr. Brown?
Now, if I'm understanding just from our previous questions we had from the citizens, this is basically just streamlining instead of doing an ordinance, which would take us several months.
That's correct. Councilmember Brown, Council, the prior rule was that it needed to occur by ordinance if it could occur at all, and that needs 2 readings and then publication. So as a practical matter, the council would need to know months and months in advance whether they were going to be able to attend that meeting. And not to belabor the point, but it's been many, many years ago, but we've had instances around the 4th of July where we were unable to obtain a quorum. And we could have addressed that and let the citizens know ahead of time if we could done it by resolution rather than ordinance. So I think this will, obviously, should prevent us getting into a scenario where we're not going to get a quorum for a meeting and then just have to cancel it that evening. We'll at least know in advance so that the folks can make arrangements and we can schedule agendas around. So.
Mr. Brown?
And also, this was spearheaded by the Charter Commission.
That's correct.
Okay.
Charter Commission annually meets with their general review of the city charter and any changes they should have. It did initiate out of the Charter Commission this year and was presented, and that's already been approved. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Orker?
Were the Charter Commission considered are the other cities that you said canceled that second meeting, do they have the same resolution? Or do they just flat out say in their charter, we're not having the second meeting in December?
I can speak to Champlin from firsthand experience. They're a statutory city, so they do not have a charter. So they're permitted the greater latitude to simply cancel the meetings. But I know in having discussions with the Charter Commission chair, we did talk about the fact that not everybody meets on that 2nd December. And the primary concern is that the city's got an obligation to pay its bills every so often. Is that going to create an impediment? And I think we determined that it would not. So that was sort of the gist of the conversation at the Charter Commission.
Is there a way, I guess if that's I know it gives us a little more leeway with doing it this way. If that's the whole intent though, is to just kind of get rid of that second meeting, is there a way to more narrow this focus down or even put some restrictions on the council in there so that we can't, I try to sneak something by the residents? Like, I don't want us to get into the habit of first meeting in December, we're like, oh shoot, we can't change it then because I know it will happen eventually, maybe not this year or next year, but eventually it would happen. And I don't want anybody to be taken by surprise and show up to the next meeting and,
The trigger, that's an excellent question. The trigger on this is really going to have two primary instances. There's a number of holidays that regularly occur on Monday. We're used to dealing with those. That simply has the meeting on the following day on a Tuesday. The primary major holidays that float as to when they happen during the week tends to be Christmas, and the other one, again, is the 4th of July. And the 4th of July, if the meeting is on, and my recollection on the one where, most recent one that I can think of where we didn't get a quorum on the 4th of July, correct me if I'm wrong, Barb, but I believe the 4th of July in that instance was on a Tuesday. So we couldn't get a quorum for the Monday, the 3rd, because everybody was already out of town for the 4th holiday. So this is directed at two primary holidays, but obviously if there's going to be an instance where we know we're not going to be able to get a quorum in advance, we're not simply going to just say by motion, we're not going to hold this anymore. We're going to have it by resolution so that we can get that out and get it posted. So
would it be too much to have the second reading sent? I don't know if we can amend it or something to say that we need to have the resolution passed 3 meetings in advance, or, and have it posted at a certain, even if, I don't know if it's today's day and age, we could say we have it, because we're not required to post resolutions, correct? Like
we traditionally do.
Okay, if we could post it on this, and this, so that people know exactly where to look, just because Steve has made some good points, I think, and I think that we should address them if we are able to at this time before we approve this.
And the intent being, obviously this will wind up on the city's website. If there's a meeting that's not going to happen at the regular time, we've got a resolution establishing it. That's going to hit our physical posting area as well as the city's website.
Yep, I get that. I mean, for the citizens that might think that we might take advantage of this regulation if we could, like, limit ourselves, like 3 meetings. If we don't, then we're having a meeting. I don't know if that's too much to do at the second reading.
Well, this is really at the council's discretion. You've got to adopt a resolution by affirmative vote at a meeting to hold it at a different time.
Yep.
So, I guess I'd leave it to the council. That's a policy decision. But
Any further discussion?
No.
Okay. Does anybody want to discuss the amount of meetings prior?
I don't know, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I think I would be satisfied with, letting the way we do business run its course, where if we know we're going to have an issue, it comes up on an agenda, it's posted, that there's a resolution that's going to be discussed, and we take action on it, and then the cancellation is posted or whatever. Because if we deviate from that way we do business for this, well, then then other quote important things are going to be up for debate as to, do we need to give people 4 weeks heads up for whatever might be deemed important, or somehow I think we have a way of doing business that I think works. I think we've got the citizens, I believe, I'm not going to say they're all well-trained, but I think we're getting quite a few folks that pay attention to websites and they pay attention to what's posted and what's going on. So I personally don't know if we need to step out of the way we do business for this. That's my opinion.
Okay, anyone else? Then I will call for a roll call vote. Mr. Orpin?
Nay.
Mr. Skordahl?
Aye.
Did somebody make a motion for this?
No. Okay, let me back up then. We start. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we approve ordinance 218.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Orpin?
Nay.
Mr. Skordahl?
Aye.
Mr. McClish?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And Mayor votes aye. All right, reports of consultants and staff members, the engineer. Mr. Volkey.
Evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you this evening is relative to the Bridge Street Utility Improvement Project. As you recall, the project was started last fall by Anoka County, and it will be completed this year. The schedule is prior to school starting in the fall. Last year, and let me back up, the project consists of two things. One, the city project, because if you recall, Anoka County got federal funds for the construction of the Bridge Street Improvement Project. There were sanitary sewer utilities outside of that project area, and according to the federal funds, those utility improvements couldn't be rolled into the federal project. So that's why the city has a contract with the contractor to do a portion of the utilities along that corridor, and then Anoka County has a contract within their portion of the project to do a portion of the city's utility project. So last year when the contractor started, there's actually been some work that's been done already. Last year when the contractor started, they were directional drilling, and basically what that is drilling a pipe without excavating. So they're pushing the pipe underground without disturbing the surface. When they were doing that, they crossed one of these city water mains. And as they crossed it, and they weren't anywhere near it, the fitting blew off at the end of the water main. So as a result, there's a water leak, and the contractor fixed it. So subsequent to that, city staff has investigated the vintage of the fittings and the materials in that area. When the water main leak was dug up, it was determined that there was not the appropriate restraints associated with that fitting. And as a result, it failed. So city staff has done some investigation. The piping within that corridor is all the same vintage, appears to be installed in the same era. And so the item on the agenda this evening for your consideration essentially is to replace the valves and fittings within that project area prior to completing the new roadway surface. It's really a discussion point. Staff's recommendation is that those items be repaired before new roads over the top of them, and they fail, and then we are excavating in a new road. However, ultimately, we want to bring it to your attention, and with our recommendation, that's how we proceed. One of the questions relative to the cost associated with that is that come your city cost, city utility, city cost associated with that. Ultimately, the financing associated with that, and you'll be seeing at an upcoming meeting, with the bond proceeds associated with the bond sale for the remainder of that portion of the project. So with that, I'll answer any questions that comes to my head.
Mr. Vogie, could this have been found when the whole project was being looked at?
Actually, we did, and staff did review the entire project prior to bidding and prior to the design. And the water main actually is PVC material, which we haven't had significant problems with in the past. And so at that point, the decision was made not to pursue replacement of the entire water main system. And this isn't proposing to replace the entire water main system either. It's simply the valves and hydrants within that project area. As a result of ultimately what we found last fall when the contractor was doing the work. So the short answer to your question is we evaluated it, and we're not concerned with it until this event occurred last fall.
That's a little disturbing to me. If there's a chance that something isn't quite right to come in after the fact, and now we have to add something more to this project, which we're spending a lot of money on. It's just my 2 cents. Something bothers me about that. Council?
Didn't we have a contractor run cable or cameras down all of our pipes the other year or two ago, or was that just something different?
No, that's a good question, Councilmember Orpin. The city sanitary sewer system was televised. I believe that was in 2014, the entire system. And the original project included sanitary sewer replacement, which is included in the project. But it's not possible to camera water mains, nor if we can't camera them, I don't believe that we would have seen the fitting issue that was discovered during construction.
Why does it cost so much for a PVC fitting? Like, I would assume that would be cheaper than, like, this seems to be really like how many fittings are there? How many hydrants are there? Do we know that?
Right, so the fittings are actually iron or ductile iron is what they're called. They're not PVC fittings, but it's the fittings that connect the pipes together to the valves, to the hydrant leads, etc. I don't have the exact numbers with me. We do have an estimated quantity sheet that we will, if the council elects to move forward, getting pricing from the contractor for it. But it's multiple valves and multiple hydrants associated with the project, in excess of a dozen. So,
And then do you know, are the funds associated with this, are they from bonds we've already issued, or are they from new bonds we will have to issue?
they would be from bonds yet to be issued.
From the same rating that we got of the AA plus, is that right?
It's a new bond issue. If you recall, last year, the bond issue that was issued was for the first portion of the project, with the intent to issue the remaining debt, because not the entire project would be completed last fall, to issue that portion of the bond this year. So prior to bringing that bond issue to council, we wanted to have this discussion as to whether or not this should be included as part of that.
And if it's not included, it's gonna come back on the agenda next year sometime to be replaced, I assume, or when would it come back?
At this point, if it's not included as part of the project, you would see it as essentially a maintenance and repair item should one of those components fail.
What do we know? You said the same vintage, doing what year the pipes were?
70s.
Okay.
Mr. Brown?
The failure really doesn't surprise me too much. We had a water main break by the city hall 2-3 years ago, and we found agricultural pipe because someone was trying to save 26 cents back in the 70s, and now we get to pay for it. So that failure there doesn't really surprise me a whole lot. Do you foresee any other surprises we may not be aware of right now? That worst case scenario?
Within the project area?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of, no. I mean, prior to the project, and as the mayor indicated, prior to the project, we reviewed maintenance records, public works staff maintenance records, and items in the area, and there were no red flags at that point.
One more thing.
Yep.
And this just kind of goes to show that in the 70s, when they were trying to save some money on the council by going on the cheap side, now we're paying for it. So I don't want to stick future councils with us being cheap or not doing the right thing. So.
Yes, Mr. Sparta.
So this is the first chance I've had to see a change order come across since I joined the council. I assume the cheapest way to get a change order done is to have the people that are already there do the work. Or is there an option it's a $200,000 bill we're talking about. Is there an option to put that little project out for bid and maybe somebody can do it for 175, or how do you, or if it's something found during that project, that's the contractor that has to deal with it. And this, like I said, this is the first time I've seen a change order since I've joined this illustrious board.
Councilmember Scoredall, the first part of your question, this is not a change order yet. It is authorization.
If we tackle it,
a change
yes.
order in the future. The second part of your question, we have talked to subcontractors to get this estimate put together. And like I said, we'll be getting costs from the actual contractors on the project. The difficulty with the Bridge Street project is the contractors on these projects are going to be working on the water mains immediately, or on the sanitary sewer immediately adjacent to the water main. Their holes will be open. Also, there's a significant traffic control system associated with the Bridge Street improvement project since they're doing it in traffic. So it's my belief that the contractors on the project would have the most cost-effective price for this work.
Okay. That's the only question I had.
Agreed. One other question I did have now, if we were to fix this one problem area and just fix that and put, say, a Band-Aid on it, and we have another failure in 2 to 5 years, how much is it gonna cost us then after the road's put in and everything's done? Just a rough guess, I can't, nail you for exact, but
It would be significantly higher. The cost that we're talking about for the valves, I mean, you still have the valve cost, plus you have the additional traffic control, potential loss of service depending on where the failure might be. It would be significantly higher.
can you give me a rough significant?
Well, we're talking about all the valves within the corridor here for this, for the estimated 200,000. I mean, one repair, I'd only be speculating, to be honest with you.
That's all I need.
It'd be, I would estimate if you did it in the future when there wasn't a construction project going on, to do all this work, it could be up to 1.5 to 2 times more expensive.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Vogel, thank you.
Thanks.
Now, what are you looking for here? You Look for direction? Council? Mr. Brown?
Well, I really don't like spending the money, but I really don't like spending the money later on. A lot more of it. So if we're gonna do something, we don't wanna do it right now. We won't have time or money to do it right later on. So let's do it right now.
Mr. Confession?
Staff is reporting that it does need to get replaced here and the road is gonna be torn up anyways, so it's more cost effective to do it now than paying a lot more in the future. I'm not happy about this either, but I really don't have a choice here in this matter, so.
Mr. Scornall?
I echo everything these two gentlemen just said. I don't see a way not to go do this now. I think it needs to be done.
Mr. Orphan?
I agree, and especially don't want to see our new road become a big patchwork of different spots, and county's paying a ton of money for that. Let's keep it nice.
I would agree. Mr. Vogel, you have direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the city administrator.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, we have 3 requested proposals from the Fire Relief Association. One of them is to increase the benefit from $2,100 per firefighter per year to $3,100 to enroll the Relief Association into para, which would then trigger an earlier vesting for the firefighters at 5 years, I believe. And then the final request is to have the city commit a voluntary contribution of $500 per firefighter per year to the fund. With that, we got some updated balance analysis of the relief fund as to what would happen at certain dollar amounts, what percentage the fund would be at. Those should be listed on your staff report. Anything below 100%, the city would be liable for in making up the difference if the investments were to fall below that by the time they get certified to the state. So feel free to correct me if I misspoke on anything.
It's if the fund falls below 90%,
Below 90%.
and then the city would have 10 years to bring it up.
Back up to 100%, and if it comes above 100% within the 10 years.
Then the city doesn't have to make that change.
All the requests are in front of you for your consideration.
Gentlemen?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Let's make sure I understood what I just heard. So if it falls to 90%, the city is still responsible for that 10, but we have 10 years to make that up, right?
It's amortized.
And the market could adjust, and then the city is not on the hook for any of that value.
Council, I know we had a workshop on this.
Are we certain on the 90? I've never, it's the first time that 90% number has been brought up in all the discussion we've had. Have we, I guess I'm trying to look it up in the thing here, but.
I guess I do have in the staff report 100%. That's what I was led to believe. If that's inaccurate, someone wants to go on the record and state that. But that was my understanding, that if it fell below 100% by the time we certified at the state.
You guys still have the presentation from Matt Ziegler?
On file, yeah.
You kind of know the whole process of
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. McQuish.
does this have to be, does the council have to act on this tonight? Is there a deadline for this? Because I'd like to get clarification on the 100% versus the 90%.
Yeah. I don't believe there's a deadline tonight. We said we would bring it back to this meeting.
Yep, because I know we had a workshop on
But
that.
yeah, this is the first I've heard of 90% also.
Me too.
So,
Yeah. Because that would I'll probably make a difference, I think, even what I would decide, but because the 90% is a lot different than 100%. Can we just table that first one and then move on to the next two items on the agenda?
I don't remember members of the council. One of the reasons we wanted to bring it back to the first meeting in April, so that we had more than enough time to certify it by the deadline, which I believe is December 1st.
Mhm.
So we have quite a bit of time to get this corrected and get whatever numbers we have to in our budget. So we could bring it back at the next meeting in April to consider.
Mr. Mayor, I think I would like to table I'd like to table number one. And let's make sure we get all the data right. I mean, we've got a significant amount of the fire department is here, taking their time to come here. So if we're gonna do this again, let's make sure we get all the data right and get it all straight. But I would recommend we table item number one.
Mr. Orpin, are you?
I agree too, but I think I remember in the presentation, something about we had to raise the rates before we could even consider bringing them to pair. I think that's what they wanted that's why they're in order. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
So if we do the rates, if we don't do the rates raises, we should wait on para. Is that a fair assessment?
We've been waiting since October, but yes, that's a fair assessment.
Like that, because I think the big issue here is the 90% and 100% is a huge difference, especially when you look at the numbers in the packet.
Mhm.
So I guess if we're gonna come back next week with the numbers, we might as well just wait. So we can give the firefighters a fair assessment of what's going on in this.
The 3,100 brings us down, I believe, to 120%. So you guys are debating over 30% loss. No fund has lost 30% over a year.
Except in 2007 and 2008.
And
The,
that fund did not fall below 100%.
According to the numbers we have, and if you read the packet, it says that 3,100 will put us at 100.49% with the latest numbers that we were provided from our finance director. So that's where it comes in at that 10% is a big deal right now. So I guess, yeah, I'm in favor of just waiting on all of them until next time, very next meeting.
Okay,
It would have been nice that the city council include the fire department relief association during your workshop. Also, Niall Zickman, our professional that we brought in, just like you do for the engineer. And also a para representative that the city council has to request today to bring in a para representative to speak on those numbers. We're not the professionals either. We have an association that has a company run our fund right now. We want to move to para and have another company run our fund. We're not asking for something that's outrageous. What we're asking for is that you believe the professionals, para, and you also believe our professional that we brought in October and spoke with you guys. And then we asked for a workshop. You didn't even include us. You sat on it, now you want to extend it again.
This will be the third time as well.
You can't have a workshop and not invite the professionals. We're not making up numbers. Call in the professionals. The city council has to request para. We can't. The fire department cannot request, you speak with a para representative. You have to do it.
Mr. Coleman?
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, these estimates did come from para. That's where we got them.
The newest estimates that are in the
They
packet.
just came in last week. George Bickler sent the form to me to send to para, and they came back with these balances.
Yeah, why did the fire department get a copy of that one?
They did.
You have.
They should have. They sent it to George and myself, I believe.
Interesting.
And I will forward on another copy to whoever needs to get a copy, but they just came in last week.
And para says 3,100 works. That's what the professionals say.
Want to make a motion to table till next meeting,
Which items?
all of them.
All of them?
We may be a little light on the council, able to attend the next meeting. You may want to have that discussion before you decide what date you're coming back.
Can we get a motion to have the city council approve a para representative to come talk to the city? That's what we need. The fire department needs that. We can't request para to come speak to you. The city council has to do it.
Mr. Coleman?
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, we can definitely request someone to come out here, but this form that we submitted was a request to para, and these are the numbers that came back. So we can see if they will send someone out here to speak to you at our meeting, but that's where these balance percentages come from.
Now, the reason Mr. Lepak brings up a question is because we will be too short at the next meeting. So there will be 3 here. But I would like to get this put to bed.
I agree.
Can you do it with 3?
I think you could. I don't know if it'd be fair to them if one of the 3 didn't agree, then it's kind of they're getting a short straw on that deal.
It'd be a dead issue then.
Yeah.
That's not fair to the fire department.
I would agree. That's why I'm asking the question.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to bring up the subject of why does everything keep getting put off with us as it appears to now to keep getting tabled when there's been so much time to talk about it with the council?
Because right now there's questions. You know, you're saying 90%, we've always heard 10%. We need to find out what it is before we can make a solid decision. We want to take care of it, believe me, but we want to make sure we have the facts correct. That's all.
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I guess, and the only reason why we're debating about the date is me personally, I'll be in a meeting on the East Coast that I can't move that Monday, so I physically won't be here. And I think the mayor's got a travel conflict too. So you'd be stuck with 3 of us, and is that fair to you guys to discuss this topic? We could try, but, so that's why we're debating on not necessarily kicking the can down the road, it's just that date. We have some conflicts in our real life, so to speak, that make getting all 5 of us here difficult. So that's why we're having that
I think
discussion.
what you're saying, it's been 6 months for you to discuss this. It's been 6 months to get your numbers together, at least. That's all. Why it's taking so long.
Yes, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, it has been 6 months, but we also have to look at a lot bigger picture than just the fire department. We have to look at the financial health of the whole city and what it would do worst case scenario. It's not that we're neglecting, I was one of you once, so I know the frustration.
Even if the fund, if we say 100%, we're still above 100% at 3,100. Why isn't the city council wanting to move forward? The fund is over 100%. We're not debating, you're debating 10%. We're still over 100% for the city council. And our fund.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Braun?
The last time the economy went bad, I personally lost 75% of my money in my investments. And the economy could go bad again. So we have to look up worst case. We don't want to bankrupt the city.
What about all the other para employees of the city then? Come on now. Just show support to your fire department. I'm coming from an outside source. I work for the school district. There's no support for the fire department, but there's plenty of support for the police department. And I see it here. I see it everywhere. I see the police department doesn't even support the fire department. It's ridiculous. There is no support for the fire department in this town. And I see it now. It shouldn't have been this difficult or taken this long.
Should have seen the fire department 20 years ago. A lot more support than there was then. I guarantee it.
That's okay, but we're now in 2016, man.
All right, council.
I'd like to address one thing. If we bring it down, or bring our amount to $3,100, that'll bring us to about 105% of the scene. Our entire investment has never, even during the bad time of the economy, has never fallen below 100% ever. And by Niall Zigman's presentation that he gave you, it's actually kind of criminal for us to hold too much money in the accounts, because now it seems like we're kind of keeping this money ahead of it, and we'll only bump it up, say $100. Well, then say if 3 of us want to keep this money, then right before we retire, then all of a sudden we raise it. It's just not a fiduciary responsibility on our part. So that's why we asked Para, you come up with the numbers. We don't want to be involved because we're not accountants. So we had them run the numbers, and they do it for practically almost the entire state of Minnesota's Relief Association for fire departments. And they came up with a number. That's why we're using that number for you guys. They are not in the business to have you guys lose money. It just would not make sense for them, because it would actually tarnish their record.
Sure. Council? We have a motion on the table, I believe, to move it to the next meeting. Do we want to do that, or do we not? Or will the motion die for lack of a second? Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. How do you guys want to proceed?
Well, we can discuss it. I say if we're gonna discuss it, we discuss it now with what we were under the impression the entire time of 100%.
Okay.
Since that's this last 6 months, that's what we've been basing
Right.
everything on.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a motion that we commit to finish this by the end of May? Direct staff to go get the story straight, 90%, 100%, whatever it is. If we can't do it on May 18th because of I suggest we skip the May 18th meeting because there's only 3 people here. But can we make a commitment to get this done, April 18th? Can we make a commitment to get this done by the end of May and be done with it? That would be my resolution. Complete whatever fact finding, address our questions, and this will be on agenda between now and the end of May. That would be my resolution, that's the path we should take.
Mr. Braun?
Could you amend that motion to make sure it's done in the first meeting in May?
That would be fine. First, I would amend my motion that staff gives us some updates on what our questions, and we commit to bringing this back and give these folks a decision by the first meeting in May.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Reports from council members. Mr. Brown?
Nothing this evening.
Mr. Scordahl?
Nothing this evening.
Mr. McClish?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Orpin?
Nothing to report.
Move on to the report to the mayor. I just want to remind everybody that April 30th is the recycling day out at the Public Works Building from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Other than that, we'll move on. Is there any old business? Hearing none, is there any new business? Hearing none, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.